Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, if you do enjoy the video that you came here to watch, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really does help my audience grow. It really does help this channel grow. It means more than you realize. So go ahead, hit that little red button. Also, remember, full episodes of the Aaron Torres podcast, wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. Now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, there is one other little coaching carousel-ish piece of news that I do want to, not even news, just something I do want to get to wrap the show. And before we get to it, I do want to kind of put out the caveat that I do from time to time say on this show. This show is a lot of things, okay? I try to be honest. I try to be sincere. I try to be insightful. But sometimes something comes across my desk that is so interesting that it's worth discussing, even if it isn't really likely going to happen. And I think it's okay for sometimes on a Wednesday to have a little bit of fun at the end of the show. But what I want to talk about now, it really goes to something that I've said quite a bit on this show. My job, yes, it is to talk sports, but it is to be entertaining, interesting, insightful. And so what I've told you many times is that really on this show, if you really break down this show, who we are, what we do, what we discuss, we really talk about four different things. We talk about what has happened. Alabama beat Arkansas. Here's why it's important. Here's what it means. We talk about what will happen. I think Alabama's going to beat Texas A&M because Texas A&M stinks. Let's talk about it a little bit. We talk about what could happen. This guy's reportedly going to the portal. Lance Leipold, is he the favorite to get the Wisconsin job or the Nebraska job? And then finally, we talk about what should happen. Things that probably won't happen, but they're interesting enough, or there's just a little morsel of information that makes me kind of feel like this is something we should probably talk out, even if it isn't likely to happen. And this topic that we are about to discuss is exactly one of those things. And so, as you know, 5 different head coaching jobs currently open here in the first week of October. Insanity. Arizona State is open, Wisconsin is open, Nebraska is open, Georgia Tech is open, and Colorado is open. And as we talked about on Tuesday's show, we ranked all the shows, and we ranked all of the jobs, excuse me. And I told you that I thought that Colorado was probably the worst job available. And it's no disrespect, and it's not to feel bad, but there's a lot of things working against Colorado. They don't have a ton of money. There's no natural recruiting base. From the money perspective, they're in the Pac-12 with no sign of help. They're going to be behind the 8 ball financially going forward for a program that isn't making very much money as it is. And so there isn't a lot of hope for Colorado right now. But on Tuesday afternoon, something came across my desk that was really interesting, and it made me go, And here is a tweet that I saw from a Colorado beat reporter, covers the team. This is what he said. Colorado resumed practice, or they had their first media availability on Tuesday after firing Karl Dorrell on Sunday. A Colorado beat reporter named Brian Howell tweeted this. He said, former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron has called Colorado's interim defensive coordinator Gerald Chapman each of the last few days to see how things are going as he transitions into a new role. Chapman worked at LSU last year and has a solid Coach O impersonation. And so when I saw that, it got me thinking, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not saying Coach O to Colorado will happen. As a matter of fact, I'm almost certain that it will not. But I will say, I do think it's kind of interesting. I do think it's interesting that he is checking in on his former assistant 2, 3, 4 times over the past couple days. And what I would finally say is this. I don't think it will happen, but Coach O is actually kind of the perfect candidate for Colorado. Let me explain. Now, before we get to it, let me just explain why I don't think it's going to happen. One, Coach O is 61 years old. He obviously got fired last year right around this time at his dream job at LSU. He's from Louisiana. We all know the story. So when you're 61 years old, you got fired from your dream job, and they're paying you $17 million to go away, fully guaranteed. Not only does he not have to coach again, he said very publicly, I don't want to coach again. I have my dream job. It was the best thing that could have ever happened. I led LSU to a national championship. I have no interest in getting back into this. His two sons are or his I think he might have three sons, but a couple of his sons are trying to transition into coaching. He's helping them. He's obviously having fun with some of his buyout money. We saw him at the Texas A&M Miami game. And so it's clear that Coach O is living his best life, doing whatever. And there's no real reason for him to get back in. But as I sat back and really thought about it, and again, and to be clear, I just think that he's checking in on a buddy of his, a guy that worked for him last year, just to make sure that everything's going okay. But as I thought about it, I actually thought, Coach O basically checks all of the boxes, like all of the problems that LSU has. Coach O is actually a pretty good solution for him, right? So let's think about it. What is the problem with Colorado right now? They haven't been good in forever, as I told you. Take out the COVID year where everybody got a bowl invite. They have one bowl invite since 2007, which is insane to think about. So what are their problems? One, they have no natural recruiting base. Colorado doesn't produce a lot of players. Obviously, during their glory days in the early to mid 90s, late 80s to the mid 90s, whatever you want to call it, they recruited Southern California really hard, but they can't really recruit Texas. They're not in the Big 12. Southern California, everybody's recruiting Southern California. They can't get the players that they once did. Well, Coach O is not only known as a pretty dogged recruiter. Where did he cut his teeth as maybe the most feared recruiter in all of college football? Oh, that's right. As an assistant at USC under Pete Carroll. And I know that times change, and I know that people change, and I know that high school coaches change. And I'm not saying if Coach O goes to Colorado that he would sign the #1 class next year. The best players are still going to go to USC. The best players are still going to go to Ohio State. If Alabama calls, they're going to listen. But could he get the next tier? Would he have a natural pipeline that pretty much no other coach that's a candidate would have? I kind of think he would. And I think he'd certainly have the respect of the high school coaches when he walked in, and he'd certainly have the name recognition with recruits when he walked in the building. Beyond that, what's the real issue with Colorado? Something I've talked about a lot on this show over the last couple episodes. They have no money. It's not a knock. It's just a reality. The Pac-12 brings in less revenue than anybody else. We don't know what the Pac-12's TV's contract is going to look like. We don't even know where Colorado is going to be playing in the next couple of years, as in theory, they could go to the Big 12. I looked it up. 2020 is the most recent kind of filings in terms of finances. Colorado had the 4th lowest revenue in the Pac-12, behind only Oregon State, Washington State, and Cal. That's not good when you're 9th out of 12 teams in the conference that makes the least amount of money, period. That's not good. Well, you think Coach O, if he were to entertain taking any job, you think it'd be about the money? Because I don't think it would be. By the way, Carl Durrell, $1.2 million. He's owed 8.7. So you don't have money to spend anyway. You weren't paying very much for head coach, but you do have to pay a big buyout. Well, guess what? Coach O just got a $17 million buyout. This is not a guy that's going to get into it only for the money. And as a matter of fact, he's not going to demand or command a $5, $6, $7, $8 million contract a year. You can't afford it. He doesn't need it. Now everybody wants the most money they can get, but he's kind of one of the few guys with name recognition that you can actually get on the cheap. I would also say, on top of that, keep in mind this as well, beyond the fact that he has no money. I think this is an important part as well. What's the other problem for Colorado? It's not only that you don't have the money to afford to hire a good coach. If he has success, you can't keep him. Look what happened with Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker comes in. He's not even that good in year one. And then Michigan State comes in and they say, here's a bunch of money. Here's a bunch of money for your assistant coaching pool. Mel Tucker says no once. And then they come back with even more money. And he says, you know what? I probably got to take that money. So why do I bring it up? You think Coach O at 61 years old is trying to climb the coaching ladder? Like I said, he already had his dream job. He actually already had his 2 dream jobs if you include USC for about 8-9 weeks in 2013. And so this is the one guy that you can hire that he's not looking to climb the ladder. He's not going to use you to leverage you to get a better job. If you throw him a life raft and he actually wants to do it, and I'm not saying that he does, but if you do, you think that guy's going to be eternally grateful forever. And so you get to keep him forever. If you bring him in, if he has success, he's not looking to cash in and go back to the SEC. I think he's happy to retire in the mountains there and have a good time. And then finally, what I would say, the name cachet solves the final problem, which is that Colorado has no identity, no relevance, and most importantly, they're not selling tickets. You mean to tell me if you sign Coach O, if you hire Coach O tomorrow, that guy couldn't immediately generate interest? I don't claim to know everything about the Colorado fan base, but you mean to tell me That guy you wouldn't sign up for tickets if you were a Colorado fan living in Boulder and you gave up your tickets 15 years ago because the team stunk? Because I'll tell you what, I would sign up tomorrow. I might get season tickets, fly out there just because. Just saying. So it's something to consider. It's something to talk about. And I'm just telling you, I don't think it's going to happen. But man, let's just talk it out. Checks all the boxes. He's going to recruit it at as good of a level as you're going to have at Colorado. Doesn't cost a lot of money to hire him. Doesn't cost a lot of money to keep him. Name recognition. High school players want to play for him. Coaches respect him at the high school level. I think this is an all-time no-brainer. I'm not saying it happens, but you have a direct line. If I was Rick George, the AD at Colorado, get Gerald Chapman on the phone right now, pull him into your office and say, give me Coach O's number. I want to talk to that guy. I'm not saying he takes it. Try to convince him, though. I try to convince him.